And welcome back to Higurashi. Time to finish the questions arc off with this part, since I have 2 more chapters left. And of course the after party, so you won't be seeing this until 2020 when Matsuribayashi comes out. Assuming it does that year, but otherwise maybe around Halloween when it comes out. Then I could do the rest of the answer arc then, because I don't want to wait a long time for that. But anyway, let's get started. That was my first time losing consciousness. You often hear of regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this was my first time actually experiencing it. Hello? Are you okay? Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. And I didn't intend to respond, but it seems my body language had told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. The scratches all over my body had also been treated. My sense of pain had also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from the intense pain shooting all throughout me. Oh, Kyosuke. Don't try to get up. Just stay lying down, please. It seems that you took quite a few blows to the head. I don't want you to... Oh, whoops. I want you to stay rested so we can monitor your condition for at least the next 24 hours. Where is this? This is my clinic. Pleased to meet you. My name is Ire. I remembered that this young doctor was the one in the car headed the opposite way earlier. Is there somebody here? Where's Oishi-san? I'll call him over. There's no smoking inside the clinic, so I had him smoke outside. Dr. Ire left the room to call Oishi. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped, with the voices of the Higurashis heralding the cooling temperature. I felt that the tone of the Higurashi's voices was comforting. Eventually, I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oishi's. The fog that was enveloping my head slowly faded back to reality. What had happened since then? What had happened to the boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Ire and Oishi to enter. So there's no serious damage, is there? I can't promise that. I assessed the wounds to his head was dangerous the moment I saw it. Got it. I want to have a little chat alone with him for a bit. Would you mind? Yeah, go ahead. Call me if anything happens. Oishi, after basically forcing Dr. Ire outside, shut the door. How are you feeling? I did something I'm not used to, so I'm pretty banged up all over. Oishi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against the wall and sat down beside the bed. Were the perpetrators arrested? Unfortunately, no. They probably already fled the prefecture or are being hidden by the villagers. Well, we won't let them get away. What about the minister's grandson? They're taking care of him at the station. But your colleagues from Tokyo are rather insistent that nothing be recorded. Shige-chan doesn't like that too much. Nah. The kidnapping was a confidential matter, so his custody was also probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it never happened, would be handled by the brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out. But something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over. Sorry for the trouble. You must think that public safety is rather unseemly placed, don't you? No. We all work on the government's dime. Oishi laughed boisterously. When we first met, I was somewhat prejudiced against Oishi, but now that feeling was gone completely. It would be more convenient for us if this case was handled properly instead of being hidden away. If that happened, we would be able to have something to go at the Sonosaki family with, since they were behind it all. Well, if we just start poking around, we'll get all sorts of pressure put on us, though. What a mess. Are you going to continue to fight against the Sonosaki family after this? Nah. There's all sorts of dark rumors swirling around them, but it's not like I have a personal grudge. It'd be wise not step on any toes here. Nah. Oishi laughed happily, and I couldn't help but laugh along. Oh, that's right. There was word at the station from the prefectural office. Your colleagues arrived at Nagoya and are driving up here now. You've got your battle scars, so you're being recalled to Tokyo apparently. That's how it's shaking up. Good job. Your work in Okinomiya is safely over. I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words. I'm deeply thankful for your cooperation, Oishi-san. It seems the collaboration fee I paid you didn't go to waste. I kinda meant that as a joke though. Oishi took out his wallet, casually pulled out several large bills, and jammed them into my breast pocket of my shirt. This isn't a refund on the collaboration fee, you hear? This is just me gifting you a little spending money. The booze around here is pretty good. Use this to buy yourself a little souvenir. Oishi flashed me a grin. If your injuries turn out to be not too serious, call me before you head back to Tokyo, will you? The old man and Sato-san said they like to sit at a table with you again. Oh my! Can't refuse that. And no tricks this time. Just some plain old fun. They always say that this world is done for if an active officer can cheat that blatantly. It's not that often we may meet someone who's more than a match for us. That we meet someone who's more than a match for us. It's too bad you're going back to Tokyo. When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oishi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon the Ukie would be giving birth. it might be possible to attend the delivery that I had at one time given up on. When I thought that the pain from my injuries became trivial, I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yukie at once. Can you pretend that your injuries are a bit more serious and hang around Okinomiya for a bit? I can introduce you to a few nice places. Of course, I won't make you pay for everything. I'm terribly sorry, but I'll have to take a rain check on that. My wife is due to give birth any day now. I want to hurry back home. Oh my, I didn't know that. Then you shouldn't be hanging around here. You have to hurry back home. For a while after that, Oishi asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me. Well then, how do you feel? Think you can get up? Yeah, it's not so bad thanks to you. I can get up and walk no problem. I stood up and shuffled around for a bit, which seemed to amuse Oishi. Nah, I just thought that you might not feel comfortable at a hospital in Hinamizawa. Dr. Ide said he wanted you to stay overnight, but we still haven't caught the perpetrators. For the time being, this is enemy territory for you after all. Are you saying this hospital isn't safe? Well, Dr. Ide is somebody who's well regarded in the community. I don't think anything would happen while you're here, but I'm more worried about your mental health. That moment of hearing that. Oh no! I know what he's talking about by mental health. I had to relax for a bit now that things have progressed this far, but it was exactly as Oishi had said. When I realized that this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. The only thing left for me to do was leave. The chance I would come to harm was logically fairly low, but that didn't mean I was completely safe. That's right, if I'm just going to be lying down, then doing it in a hotel bed won't be all that different. Right. I also think that's for the best. At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oishi's shoulder. It was the evening. The hours when I could call Yukie at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her as quickly as possible that I would soon be back at her home. I want to call Yukie at the hospital. Is there a public phone in the lobby? You newlyweds are all like this. If I recall correctly, there's one by the register. I'll be waiting here, so go ahead. Oishi, laughing while saying that he was jealous, opened up the window and pulled out a cigarette, even though he was in a hospital room. Oh my god. Appreciative at how considerate Oishi was, I set out to the lobby to find the phone. The lobby was just a short distance down the hallway from the hospital room. I thought that this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course, it was nothing compared to the general hospital Yukie was admitted to. Running inside a hospital wasn't the best of manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was nobody else in the lobby. It may have been... Oh, hey, Nitori, how are you doing tonight? I'm just gonna call you Oscar, since I know another Nitori from my streams. Anyway, it may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. Ah, I see. Oscar Mike. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Oscar Proud? Oh my god, does anyone even remember the Proud family? I remember that. Anyway, well, this might actually be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would be still it would still be embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yukie. Taking a quick look around, I soon found the payphone. Digging around in my pocket, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I would burn through this amount fairly quickly. I picked up the receiver and inserted a coin and dialed the number for Yukie's hospital, which I had completely memorized at this point. Brrr, brrr, brrr. The number for Yukie's hospital has a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it inevitably took some time. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something was strange as I was dialing in the number. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. That unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow, I felt that I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone, and without feeling a response, I hung up the receiver to try again. The coin popped out from the return slot. I reinserted the coin and began dialing once again, but the receiver was still dead silent. What is this? Is it disconnected? While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had to spend time with Yukie shrunk. I began to feel needlessly impatient. Excuse me. I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came over. Yes, how can I help you? Pardon me. This phone seems to be acting a little strange. Could you take a look at it? The man came over and tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at the hospital, not someone from the phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he. Huh? What's this? The man felt up the cord that connected to the phone to the wall. It was completely severed. What is that? Well, this is a dilly of a pickle. Can't do anything with this until somebody from the phone company comes and fixes it. If you're looking for a phone, do you want to use the one in the office? I didn't want the people in the hospital office around while I was talking. Is there another payphone close by? Let's see, if you leave here and follow the road, you'll come out into the shopping district. I think there's a smoke shop on the corner around there. If you head that way, you should be able to find one soon enough. I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages. Just looking at me, you could tell I was a hospital patient. No matter how you look at it, I was not dressed to be wandering outside. But that's where the impetuous of youth came in. Choosing the chance to talk to Yukie for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. Follow the road to the shopping district. You should be able to find one soon enough. Only 2 lines is my guide. I ran outside the gates of the hospital. With the village nestled in the valley where the sun set, it got dark quickly. The sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashis, knowing the time for their course was soon at a close, redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as the person at the hospital had suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it already? Was I just getting farther away? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me, I found a shop on the corner with cigarettes written on a small sign. My joy spurred me onwards. Just as I heard at the hospital, set next to the counter of the cigarette shop was an antiquated payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was. I probably didn't have much left though. But it was enough, just as long as I could tell Yukie my job was done and I would be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid the coin down the slot, but as I felt something was strange, just like at the hospital, even after inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried putting the coin one more time, but there was absolutely no response. The phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protruded from the back of the phone. Oh no. Oh no! Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. It seemed that the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of some sort. And I may be mistaken, but it didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut. Excuse me, hello? Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. Eventually, there was a sound of somebody plodding down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady's plodding and lethargic steps, for some reason, only served to make me more frantic. You need some cigarettes? I'll need to get my husband. I'm not here to buy cigarettes, rather this phone here. Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look at it was going to get me nowhere, I swallowed back my words. Sorry, it seems that this phone is broken. I was wondering if you could tell me where there's another payphone. The old lady moved her jaw up and down, slowly as if chewing on the meaning of my words. It seemed that she wouldn't understand until she had suggested things thoroughly. So the phone is broken? That's a dilly of a pickle. You should try another payphone. The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite a ways away. Her way of telling me was not so long... No, her way of telling me was so long-winded that I inadvertently started to get impatient. At that moment, I spotted a clock in the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Even if there was a phone right there that I could use, I would only be able to tell Yukie goodnight with the time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone, which I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was a normal state of mind, deciding to give up the phone today would have been the neutral thought process. That moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. Unable to use the payphone in the hospital and coming out there and still being unable to use one, there was no mistaking that I had become quite insistent on using a phone. Thank you very much. I'll try looking for that phone booth. Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. According to the old lady, even though the phone booth was quite far away, it would be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flapping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit that I was quite steadfast about calling Yukie, but there were days when I was tired or busy when I wouldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries, and I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days I didn't call her, but having twice have been foiled trying to call her Had I become hot-headed about it? Was I like a dog who was being told to stay with a piece of food dangled in my face? What am I doing? Even so, I somehow couldn't quell the uneasy feeling of sitting in the pit of my stomach. It was like that with the hospital phone and the same one at the tobacco shop. Both cords were definitely not severed from being frayed by long years of use. The clean cuts indicated that someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who, and for what reason? The more I thought about it, the uneasier I felt, so I tried to push the thought aside. How much had I run so far? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district, with residential buildings scattered about the lonely road. The surrounding had already grown dark. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious I was far removed from the hospital. I recalled the clock at the tobacco shop. It might almost be time. I had to run for a bit, so my breath had grown quite ragged. If I just wanted to hear Yukie's voice, I should have just thrown away my reservation and borrowed the phone in the office. I regretted it a little. Well then, was it about time to give up? Just when I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I'd finally found it. It was the phone booth. It seemed that the light in the phone booth had recently been changed, as it shone with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa, it was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. But in any case, I finally found it. As my hand touched the phone booth, I realized that I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was right now, but even if just for a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yukie. Since I had spent all this effort getting here, turning back and without giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried that the phone cord might be severed as well. How was the cord in this phone booth squatting down? I followed a bundle of cables as they ran along the corner into the ceiling. At a glance, nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my fingers as far as I could along the line to check it out. The only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wonder if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. It might be prudent to talk to Oishi-san about this later. Even if nothing was more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. In any case, this one was fine this time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket with one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. But this time, before the receiver even reached my ear, I felt something was off. The receiver was light. It was more than an unpleasant feeling. It almost felt sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance. What is this? The coil cord that had connected the receiver to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. Oh my god. It was all I could do to restrain myself as a raw and unpleasant feeling worked its way up the small of my back. It was a type of dread. At that moment, I heard a crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls on the booth, leaving unable to see outside into the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the payphone booth. The inside of the booth was lit with that strong light which might have made it warmer in there. Just outside, I could feel a chill wash over me. And there was a silhouette of a person, a small silhouette. The long hair of the silhouette was blown about by a cool breeze. Oh, hey, it's Rika. Injured people shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have a basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl. Right, Akasaka? She, Rika Furude, said that almost like it was a warning. Did you do this to the phone cord? Her expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I felt that she had affirmed my suspicion. Why would you do something like this? Why? The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid. There's nothing that can be done. Huh? I interpret her word as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. But thinking about it, that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could take what she had said to any other meaning. She just stood there, like a mannequin, not even moving an inch, almost to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her long hair, there would be the illusion that time has stopped. I know very well that you think I'm disgusting, Akasaka. Huh? No. That's not true. My denial almost came out like a bad piece composed for a poetry slam, but her words were right on the mark. I had always felt something ominous and uncanny about her, ever since her strange threats at the shrine. She had noticed that my expression was contrary to my words, seemingly laughing at the gap between them. Akasaka, you coward. I'm not a coward. Being laughed at this by the small child didn't sit well with me, so I had said that. Even if you find another phone, it's too late. That's right. She didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. I might have already missed calling hours, even by the time I reached this phone booth. I was too late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought that it was strange that I was that obsessed. A strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. Oh god, that face is scary. I mean, just look what I was wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown and sandals, and my head wrapped in bandages, and my body completely soaked in sweat. It was a wonder that the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. With wanting to hear Yukie's voice as my motive, I was trasped around the town the entire evening. I didn't know whether to call it the follies of youth or simply plain embarrassing. In any case, it was all I could do but laugh at myself. Now, there's nothing left for Akasaka to do for tonight. You're right, there's nothing. I'll just quietly return to the hospital. That's fine. Do you know the way? I hope I do. She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way I came. She began to follow alongside me. Looking at her face, I could see that she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I would get lost. Is Rika-chan's house also this way? It is. Won't your parents be mad that you're walking around alone at this hour? Not really. My parents are busy today, so they probably forgot about me. Even then, it's best if you head home. They'll definitely be angry. Even if they are, it's much more interesting to talk with Akasaka, so I'm fine. She said that with a face free from worry, as she looked up at me once more and smiled. When she showed me that smile, the eerie feeling surrounding her faded. But even then, she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I had turned at earlier, but it was much darker than before, and with the point of view change on the return trip, I wasn't very confident that this was actually the corner I turned at. There's no mistake. Typo again! It had to be this corner. As I began to move my feet again, the girl grabbed onto my clothes. Isn't Akasaka going back to the hospital? Of course, at least I intend to. Am I going the wrong way? A short moment of silence. Eventually, still holding onto my clothes, she began to walk. It was the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl would take me on. Oh, looks like that's the end of this part of the chapter. The person who was running around cutting all the phone calls was you, wasn't it, Rika-chan? You shouldn't do that anymore. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Really? She tried to play dumb, but it was written all over her face. Nipa! It was obvious she was trying to laugh it off, but that adorable smile of hers just want me to forgive her. I'm going to be a horrible father, aren't I? That momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words. It's good that they found the grandson safe and sound. Unable to respond right away, I sunk into silence. I'd already learned this from Sato-san's info, didn't I? This girl, no, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in. I considered playing dumb, but in the end I chose not to. With everything being known already, there was no point in me feigning ignorance. Somehow? That's great. Now you can go back to Tokyo. Thank you. Are your injuries bad, Akasaka? Don't know. I haven't heard anything from the doctor yet, so I don't know if they are or not. Huh. Come to think of it, I vaguely remember being told to lie down and take it easy for at least 24 hours. Did that mean bed rest? The wounded should be sneaking out of the hospital. People shouldn't be cutting phone cords. Meep. I have no idea what you're talking about. Then I don't know what you're talking about either. As we played dumb with each other, we both laughed at the same time. If somebody saw us laughing at each other like this, it would probably bring a smile to their lips. The chances of Akasaka leaving this village alive weren't very high. I don't want Akasaka to die, so I'm glad you're leaving this village alive. Rika-chan, did you know what I was right from the beginning? She said nothing, but gave a firm nod. Well then, I think you know this, but we're probably somewhat of an enemy to the people in this village, I would think. But you still gave me lots of warnings. That's right. She said it at that time. She wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She definitely said something like that. Then I should probably be thanking you. You probably should. I'm your savior. Saying that, she puffed up her chest proudly. She said it jokingly, but the meaning behind those words was quite heavy. But the meaning behind those words was quite heavy. That was because whether I lived or died was a decision that might have been made in a place unbeknownst to me. She said those words with such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for her to wait, for their weight to settle in. I'd been to this place before. The Defense Alliance's office was there. It was the stone steps leading up to the Furaday Shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding a phone booth, I hadn't realized where I was. If I recall correctly, this is Rika-chan's house. This shrine is Rika-chan's house, right? Yeah, something like that. Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on? There's a festival today. A festival? The best and only festival in Hinamizawa. The Watanagashi Festival. Watanagashi? Cotton drifting? Just knowing the name is boring. Do you want to take a look? She asked bluntly, but seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps and motioned for me to come. I was going to go back and sleep anyway. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go with her on a little detour. In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road. Hang on. If I ventured down a side road without Oishi. Even though I thought of the village like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, even without looking back... Hang on. In any case, even without anything to back it up, I felt that as long as I was with her, none of the ill will from the village would befall me. That's why, even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot into the heart of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance's territory. Climbing up to the grounds of the shrine, I could see there were about 3 pavilions set up, with meeting tables and folding chairs. The old folks from the village, no, the executives of the Defense Alliance were already quite drunkenly sharing another round of drinks. I could only see it as people from the village council drinking while enjoying the evening air. At the very least, it was certainly quite different than any festival I'd ever seen. See? It's quite a boring festival, isn't it? This certainly doesn't look like a festival. It's a festival that happened since long ago, but as you can see, it's not like what it used to be. As if to chide the old folk, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore. It was just a bunch of neighbors getting together to drink under the guise of a festival. I feel sorry for the deity being celebrated here. Give this sorry excuse for a festival 5 or 6 more years and everybody in the village will start coming. The ceremony will be done properly, and it will be a respectable festival again. What she said was not so much a wishful thinking as it was telling of a future that had already been determined. She wasn't even predicting it. It was almost like she was simply reporting the results. That's how it sounded. Even though it was baseless speculation, the way she said it, it wouldn't let me interject. It was the same way she talked about when she changed. When I struggled to find... Hypo! To find the words to reply to her, she wandered over to the other side of the grounds and not minding me at all. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed after her. Passing through a copse of pine trees, a strong and cool breeze ruffled my hair. There, from that one evening, was the splendid observation platform the girl had showed me. As it had grown completely dark, the modest lights littered across the nightscape were providing a different type of scenery. Looking at it like this, this village seems tranquil. She said that with an indifferent look on her face. Just the other day, you said that this village definitely won't be submerged by the dam, didn't you? She didn't reply, seemingly relishing in the feeling of the wind blowing through her hair. Didn't that mean at that point in time, the minister had already complied with the demands? She spun around, her gaze meeting mine. But she said nothing. She spoke nothing that would neither confirm nor deny what I had just said. This case will probably remain shrouded in darkness. Headquarters probably doesn't want trouble from a scandal with the minister breaking out. There's no mistake that they threatened to kill the grandchild. The negotiations with the minister were successful, and the grandson was released. The one who saved the grandson was you. I wonder about that, the discovery of that wallet that had started this chain of events. That alone was almost too convenient, I think. Ever since the moment that wallet was discovered, I felt something was odd. Oishi said it well, that the Sonosaki family had given the order to release the hostage, meaning that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, and had a gun pointed at me. I felt like they put up quite a fight, but that might have been all part of a good performance. Once the negotiations were successful, they couldn't just say, "Here you go," and return the minister's grandson to his doorstep. They knew that public safety had realized that this was a kidnapping case and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued safely. So the minister didn't give in to any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary. I don't know about these difficult things. Likewise, even for me, I can't make much sense of it. But there's one thing I can be certain of. It's just as you said. This village won't be submerged. The dam project will soon be over. That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying, but I naturally let those words slip from my mouth. The village may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. If someone had just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house I was used to living in, I would resent them as well. On top of that, it wasn't a place like mine where I just happened to be renting it, but a place that their families lived for generations. It might be ignorant to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. I might not be really qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land that was loved by its residents wasn't something I could get behind. Still, aren't you glad? Why would that be? At the very least, with this, peace will return to this village. Even though the minister promised to use this considerable influence to cancel the project, it would probably take more than a few months. It would be completely scrapped. At the very least, it would probably take 1 or 2 years for the villager to officially hear that their village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of the dam was still a ways away. but it was no mistake that the promise of peace, returning to the village, was there. It turned out from beginning to end that it had already been decided. Just as the girl had said, it was decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. There was absolutely no need for me to have come here and aggravate an unpleasant situation. If I had never come here, then the grandson's release might have been done in a more amicable manner. Peace in this village? When I nodded, she laughed it off as if to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, expressionless. And then her eyes narrowed slightly as she snickered. Even though every year from now on, something bloody will occur. Rika-chan, what are you talking about? As the wind blew her hair about the girl as if taking pleasure in that I was the only one who didn't know. I was the only one who didn't know, continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while. You see, in a few years, I'll be killed. Huh? Backlit by the moon, it was hard to tell her if her expression that had been cast in shadow was smiling, amused, or resigned. You are... Why? It's a very unpleasant thing, though. It's also probably been decided already. Decided already? Who would decide that sort of thing? I'd like to know that as well. Turning back to face me, she showed me a resolute expression for the first time. And after staring into my eyes for a moment, she turned back to gaze at the scenery before she spoke her next words. There's a lot of people who have no regard for human life. Even if I tell you this, it might not change anything though. But if you want to erase the specter of death sometime, like with the reflection of the moon on the water, all you have to do is throw a small stone. I had no idea what she was trying to say. It's just I had listened to every word with my body and soul, or at least just what I thought. This day next year? Yes, June 1979, on this day, the foreman of the dam construction project will be killed. What? For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, does she mean that gruff old man I played mahjong with? But, be killed? What makes you think? She didn't answer. She had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared that the dam project would go away. That wasn't the face of somebody making a forecast or a prediction. It was something that was already decided. No, it was as if she was already reporting the results, that sort of expression. After being killed in a gruesome manner, the body would be torn apart and disposed of. Murdered and dismembered? The next year in the June of 1980, on this day, Satoko's parents will be pushed to their deaths. Satoko? It was the first time I heard that name, but I didn't have the courage to interrupt the girl's story. It might be an accident, an unfortunate accident. The girl smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with this lifeless look in her eyes. And then the year after that, this day in June of 1981, my parents will be killed. And then the year after that, this day in June of 1982, Satoko's abusive aunt will have her head split open and die. Sorry about that. And then the year after that, this day in the June of 1983, or possibly a few days after. I will be killed. If all the deaths are preordained, then the last one would also be according to plan. By Zinch? I'm sorry, I had to. But then whose plan would it be? Zinch? When did Warhammer Fantasy come out? I gotta look that up. I know that's when Zinch appeared. I would assume around that year. Hang on a sec. Oh, 1983. That's probably just a coincidence. But then whose plan would it be? Ugh. This village is full of murderers and people who have no regard for human life. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths up to 1982 would be the work of somebody in the village. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths that would occur were at the discretion of those who control the village, but that didn't explain what would happen in 1983. There was no way that the last death would fit in with anybody's plan. They had no regard for human life. They would use every means at their disposal to meet their goals. But their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death was unrelated to them. But that last death would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen. Probably definitely, I dare say. The last death would be a merciful one, a handkerchief or something being placed over their mouth, making them lose consciousness, never to wake up again. Exactly whose plan was that? I want to live happily. That's my only wish. Surrounded by my precious friends, spending our days enjoyably, only that. I don't wish for anything more than that. Rika-chan, I don't want to die. The girl, stoic as ever, let those last words slip in the end. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl, as well as I, were dragged back to festivities. I love how the music is peaceful with the red background. Everybody was completely drunk, so even when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly, if I was in good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not be that serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like the one from just before. Predicting her own death and whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered, so the 20-some-odd folk here should have included some of the village executives and other important members. Among those, there was no doubt that there were members that were at the Sonosaki family council in attendance. Meaning, even if we never met face to face before, there were people who knew my identity. In a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers that lived there. That's why, even without saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider. But they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo. While drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers, and empathizing with the rather meager environment, the confidential talks with the minister were finished. His grandson was in police custody. Everything was over. I might not have to be put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. The next time I visited this village, would it return to being a tranquil and beautiful place? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl had at some point disappeared. It seemed that her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a large yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I had thought to help a bit with cleanup. However, my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep when we reached the parking lot of the hospital. The front door of the hospital was naturally blocked at this hour. I wandered around bewilderedly, searching for a back entrance until somebody on night duty found me and let me inside. Where were you this late at night? Dr. Ide was worried, you know. Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by the people at the festival at the shrine. Oh, they did something about everybody in the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Are your wounds alright? They're throbbing a bit. It's probably because of the alcohol, I think. Oh, that's right. The detective that was with you wanted to get in touch. Oops. I kept Oishi-san waiting. I glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. I returned back to my hospital room and slipped into the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. Oh, that's no good. I had to turn off the lights, but my weariness had cut the cord powering my body, lulling me into a deep sleep. Oh, let me finish off with these tips, because these are actually the last ones. There was something I didn't like about my child. I first realized it when I started writing these things down. They never warn you about it in any books about raising children, but they aren't just a plaything. If they aren't able to feel love, even when they're not exactly as their parents want them to, then those parents are failures. This wasn't something like that, though. How can I say it? It's probably harder to express with mere words. I just want my child to be average. As long as they weren't falling behind, there wasn't any need for them to excel at something. As long as they acted appropriately for their age, I would have been fine with it. But my child had been different ever since kindergarten. While the children in her class were running around in excitement about the field trip the next day, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the other kids broke the equipment for the athletics festival and were apologizing fervently, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the teacher was reading a fun picture book, only she wasn't smiling. Even if they got to eat a delicious bento, only she wasn't happy. If it was only this, it would still be in the realm of understanding. However, what I don't understand about my child is that if the aforementioned situation happened again, they now act in a manner befitting their age. I don't understand the principle behind that as a parent. Why they were indifferent about the field trips, but happy about this one. Why were they indifferent about the picture book, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about the bento, but happy about this one? The former and the latter in each situation seem exactly the same to me. There was even times when I thought the former one was better. I don't understand that child's feelings. During parent-teacher meetings, the teacher always said the same thing. And I would always respond that I don't understand my own child, and we would mope together. My husband, always the optimist, once said that a young child's feelings are different from an adult's. So if there was something we didn't understand, we shouldn't be worried about it. I lament his lack of urgency. One day, when I was in a good mood, I took the effort to prepare a menu that my child would enjoy, but she only smiled with a vague expression of disinterest. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her in the head. On the day when the weather was nice, the laundry I had just hung up about to dry was blown by a large gust of wind, causing the entire line to fall down. But she, watching me trying to pick up the laundry in a panic, stood there laughing. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. I think the same sort of thing happened countless times. Before I knew it, my child was only able to look at me with an indifferent expression on her face. I regretted the fact that I've been a bad mother. Thinking I should regain her trust, I thought to get it back little by little with some light interactions. Seeing her do some sort of craft work on the veranda, I called out to her. These past few days have been nice and sunny. The air feels nice, doesn't it? That child with an indifferent look on her face, I hate it so much, looked up to me for a moment, and then without a word returned to immersing herself in her craft work. Up until now, I would have hit her on the head just for that. I held myself back. What are you making? Is it a doll? A weather charm? That child was using inserts from the newspaper to deftly make some weather charms. The forecast hadn't called for rain, but that child, in her own way, was praying that these sunny days would continue. Being able to understand my own child for the first time in a while, I couldn't hide my own happiness. Bringing out a ball of yarn, I began to hang my child's cute weather charms from the eaves of the house. It's no good, Rika. The heads are too heavy, see? They become reverse weather charms now. If they're like this, they'll call the rain instead of the sun. When I started to take them down, my child tugged at the hem of my shirt as if to stop me. That's because I made them to be upside down. They're fine. But Rika, if they're upside down, they won't be a charm that calls for a sunny day, you know. I was making a charm for it to rain, so they're fine. I desperately suppressed the emotions welling up on me, so welling up inside of me. I was trying desperately to understand my child. Oh, I see. The morning glories in the garden were starting to get a little wilted from all the sun, so you wanted some rain, right? That child turned to me with the expression I hated the most. I got bored of clear weather. I don't understand. I don't understand. I just can't understand that child. During the family council, she buried herself under Oreo-san's futon again. Oreo-san dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter whatever insolent my child commits, she doesn't mind. It's almost as though my child is a kitten or something. Oreo dotes on her exactly like you would with a kitten. Sorry about that. As her mother, I chided her for doing that, until Oreo-san had said 3 times that it was fine. I chided as a formality, and hi Usagi, how are you doing tonight? Of course, she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Oreo-san standing was far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cunning that's unbefitting of her age, either. I'm good as well, just reading the last tips for this chapter. In any case, not only Oreo-san, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day I was surprised. By chance, on the way back from some shopping, I saw her by herself just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed the snack and opened the package right there and then started eating it. What crazy program are you talking about? She didn't make any attempt to pay for it, and she didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, more like she was brazenly eating snacks that was offered to her. When I began to admonish my child, the elderly shop owner appeared and covered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse that she had said it was okay for that child to eat any of the snacks out by the entrance, so it was fine. When I tried to pay for the snacks that my child had eaten, the owner refused my money. During that exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, and it began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. The elderly people all put their hands together reverently in front of my child and repeatedly voiced their respects. I was born into the Furude family, so it wasn't like I didn't know why she was being treated especially. When I was still young, it was something I heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child that I gave birth to was a girl, that child would be the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. All the older folk believe she's the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama and spoiled her rotten. And not only did they spoil her, but they even told me she was the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. That she had divine power and threw all sorts of strange folk tales her way. So she may have begun to believe it herself that she was a special existence. I went around and told everybody that wasn't good for her upbringing. So to stop tell her what? All these things I'm sorry. So to stop tell her all these strange things, but there was No unrooting the elderly people deep-seated unrooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child not to listen to them, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the old folks in the village who would dote on her and myself who only scolded her, there was no wonder who would she listen to. There was no mistaking that the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. There was no doubt that they had shoved her full of strange folk tales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there was no doubt my child would have been cute and normal. Alright, one more diary to read. I think obviously they're referring to Rika. One sunny parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. While the other children her age were awkwardly using kitchen knives, that child was wielding hers deftly. Her teacher approached me with a smile on her face, saying that it must be a result of learning it all at home. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and nod in response. That was because I never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then, she was peeling vegetables with a practiced hand, adding them into the pot in the order of which took longer to cook. Why does that remind me of that old Matilda movie with Danny DeVito? Especially when she was cooking pancakes. Send me on my way, on my way. I would like to hold your little hand. Yeah, I know it was also an Ice Age, but it was also a Matilda. Anyway, even then, she was peeling vegetables with practiced hand, adding them into the pot in the order of which took longer to cook. For a normal parent, they might unintentionally clap their hands together, happy at their child's action. But in my case, it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make that curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood when I asked. It seemed she could also sew and do the laundry. No, seriously, why is this reminding me of Matilda? I never taught her how to do those, and again, never saw her do it around the house, be it cooking or sewing or the laundry. Again, that was probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. And not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, trying to prop her up as the living incarnation of Oyoshiro-sama. I said as much to my husband, suggesting that we should keep our child away from the elderly folk, but my husband, who was in the position of being the head priest of the Furude shrine, had little power against the elderly who supported it. He took the rather uncommitted stance and said that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued against that she was our child and should be a completely normal girl. That what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation of Oyoshiro-sama, was simply odd. The elderly villagers believed that the child has divine powers. We would discuss the weather for the following day, but there were many times when I left the house without an umbrella and came back soaking wet. Rather than having clairvoyance, that was just secondhand knowledge from her watching the news all the time. The things that she knew that she shouldn't have known were just the result of the people who were trying to indoctrinate her, and the people who were gossiping, getting them together in the village. However, there certainly were days when everybody thought it was going to be sunny all day. Then that child would stubbornly not go without not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end, we would be saved. There might also have been times where Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries than the news did. I thought that she must have heard it break over the radio or something. Knowing things she shouldn't have, something like that was in front of me right now, wasn't it? That child was making curry rice when there shouldn't have been anybody who taught her how to. No, that couldn't possibly be the case. Somebody taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, somebody had indoctrinated Rika with something. Furude-san's curry is absolutely splendid. I'll give it a gold star. Nippa! Where did you learn to cook, Furude-san? At home? Yes, at home. The other parents in attendance were never impressed. Lies. All lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who's the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal average daughter, not the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. And all the tips are done. Time to finish this off, and you guys won't see this until possibly 2020. Midsummer, 1985. Sir! We're preparing to land. Excuse me, but will you please fasten your seatbelt? It seemed I had fallen asleep inside the plane. I was finally awoken from my slumber by the stewardess. I only had carry-on luggage on top of it, being a domestic flight, so the time between disembarking and entering the lobby was almost non-existent. Arriving at the hobby, I glanced around looking for Oishi, and was met with a familiar gruff voice calling out to me. Akasaka-san! How many years has this been? It's been a while, hasn't it? Oishi-san! It really has been a long time. Oishi clapped his hands down on my shoulders, celebrating our reunion. Akasaka-san, you're looking pretty good. You look like a bona fide frontline investigator now. You're looking quite dapper yourself. Your posture seems a lot better. Is the ballroom dancing paying off? You should give it a try while you're still young. You'd be a hit with the ladies. A real babe magnet. Oishi had retired and moved to Sapporo, and of all things had started taking ballroom dancing lessons. He had apparently gotten really into it and had decided to spend the rest of his new life devoted to that hobby. He was aiming to get his instructor qualification before he had hit 80 and to live out his old age dandily. I let myself into Oishi's car, and we headed out towards the hot spring inn. I originally intended to crash at Oishi's place, but Oishi was quite obstinate that his home wasn't suitable for that, so it came to this. At the inn, we relaxed while soaking in the hot springs, reminiscing about the time we played mahjong together in Hinamizawa. It seemed that to celebrate our reunion, Oishi had looked for people who could play, but unable to find a suitable candidate, we had to give up on putting together a table. As we drank together, we excitedly recounted our exploits during the final manhunt. Did they end up catching those two guys? Nope. In the end, the search team never found them. They were probably hidden by the villagers, then sent overseas or somewhere else far away to lay low for a bit. Oishi-san, if I remember correctly, you managed to grab one of their guns, didn't you? Did you learn anything from that? It was a Chinese-made military pistol. It's probably from the ones the gangs in Kansai managed to smuggle in a ton of. We tried to get a match from the rifling, but it didn't show up in any other cases. How about you? How about on your end? After that, I was removed from the front line, so I don't know much. In the end, it seemed like everything was settled under the veil of secrecy. Oishi smiled wearily as he sipped his chill drink. What happened after that? Sure was tough, huh? This will be 7 years now. Yeah. We held the memorial service a few days ago. I've become estranged with my father-in-law lately, so it was rough getting everything ready. That must have been a lot of work. It was then that the hostess brought in the extra drinks that we had ordered. While the bottles of beer clanked as she brought them in, we halted our conversation. What Oishi meant when he said it must have been tough. Thinking about that was still hard, but time had healed the wound. It was the day after, when I phoned Oishi to apologize. When I did, Oishi almost immediately handed the phone to one of my colleagues, who happened to be there. Not only was I injured in the brawl with the suspects, but I disappeared to drink late into the night without leaving any sort of contact information, so I thought he'd definitely be mad. However, all he said was that it was something he couldn't talk about over the phone, and that I should come to the station as soon as possible. At the time, I could only think of that he must have been really angry. But when I arrived at the station, he said this. That's what I think. It seems your wife was involved in an accident. Having no idea what happened, I borrowed the phone to contact the hospital Yukie was staying at. After being given the runaround several times, I was finally able to talk to someone in charge, and after mincing words for quite some time, they told me Yuki Akasaka was killed in an accident. The world became a blur as I sat there dumbfounded. Yukie's death was unbelievably abrupt, unbelievably sudden. I could have understood if there was some kind of problem during the birth, but Yukie's death wasn't anything like that. On the stairs on the way to the roof, she just happened to slip and fall. And she just happened to fall on an unfortunate place at an unfortunate angle. Ugh. That was it. Wanting to blame Yukie's death on somebody, I began to think that it was an act of revenge by the Defense Alliance, that they killed my wife and made it look like an accident. What I learned when I flew back to Tokyo, however, was much more cruel than that. Yukie had a habit of going up to the roof to cool off in the evening. There was an elevator up to the 7th floor, but there you had to take the stairs to get to the roof. Even late in her pregnancy, when the evening came, she always head up there. Her father had always said for her not to push herself, but Yukie insisted until the time she had no choice but to stay in bed. She should be allowed to do as she wished. However, I never once seen Yukie go up to the roof. I only heard that from her father and the nurses. That was because whenever I visited her, she would spend that time with me instead. I heard the reason why Yukie went up to the roof from a nurse she had become friendly with. She had said that her husband was away on business a lot of the time, and that whenever he called, she was able to cheer him up and give him courage. But when he didn't call, she couldn't do that. Her husband might put on a show of bravado, but in reality, he grew loathsome pathetically fast. She was probably just the same. Whenever he left for business, not clear when he'd be back, she felt lonely. And whenever she cheered him up, she was actually cheering herself up as well. That's why whenever he went far away for an important job, on the evenings he didn't call. At the very least, he felt that standing underneath the same sky, her feelings would reach him. At that moment, I remember the words that the girl had told me, that it was best that I go back to Tokyo right away. Otherwise, there would be something I'd regret horribly. Yes, that's it. Because I was away on business that day, Yukie had headed up to the roof. Had I known that this would have been the result, had I done as the girl has said and dropped everything to head back to Tokyo, I might have been with Yukie on that day she died. If I was with her, she wouldn't have gone up to the roof. The day my wife died was on the evening of the third day of my trip. Yes, it was right before the time I had the sudden urge to hear Yukie's voice, and ran around the village trying to find a phone. The girl had gone around and cut all the phone cords. If she hadn't, I had made that call, I would have undoubtedly learned of Yukie's death at the time and collapsed in tears. Well, at least Rika did you a favor. Of course, even though the cords were cut, it had only put me off learning of Yukie's death by that one evening. In the end, I had learned of it the next morning. However, when I managed to put my emotions in order, I realized it was that girl's small token of consideration. That's the first I've heard about that. Yeah, it's the first time I've talked about it. Could have been a coincidence. She doesn't have any special powers or anything. Aren't you the one who told me, Oishi-san, that she might be the reincarnation of the god called Oyoshiro-sama? Well, yeah. The old folks in the village believe that Rika Furude had divine powers. Divine powers? Oishi had originally said it as a kind of joke, but realizing that I was serious, he slumped his shoulders. I don't know if that's the truth or not. They said she did things like prophesize the future or talk about things she should no way of knowing. She should have no way of knowing. That she was clairvoyant, that it was divine revelation. Well, all sorts of things. Of course, they couldn't give specific examples, though. Nah. She prophesized Yukie's accident. Oishi tried to laugh it off, but out of respect to my deceased wife, he kept it restrained. Does that mean an active and capable investigator from the Metropolitan Police Department believes in divine power and curses? Having him said that so bluntly, I couldn't respond. Of course, I had no intention of believing such odd things. But he could only say that because he didn't know what I did. Since I met the girl, who both was and wasn't Rika Furude, I couldn't deny the existence of any otherworldly activity. Of course, I can't deny that it might not have been presence, but rather a warning. Not prescience, but a warning. If what that girl has said was a warning about Yukie's incident, then things became much easier to understand. Basically, the line of thinking became that it was a threat because I didn't go back to Tokyo. My wife was killed in a way that made it look like an accident. Not satisfied with the investigation into your wife's accident? Of course, I suspected foul play. I pored over the results and even carried out my own personal investigation. There weren't any witnesses to Yukie's fall. There was the possibility that somebody had hidden, waiting to push Yukie down the stairs. However, the cleaning ladies frequented the roof to hang laundry, and the security cameras on each floor hadn't recorded anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't anything set up on the stairs, and I was unable to find anything suspicious. In the end, even after my personal investigation, I can't think that anything else happened other than a simple accident. Well, of course, there were guys that looked like the minister's grandson's hostage. Oh wait, these were the guys that took the minister's grandson hostage. It wouldn't be impossible for them to push a lone pregnant woman down the stairs without leaving any evidence. Oishi's expression had completely sobered up. They murdered your wife? When Yukie died, I thought that as well. More precisely, I wanted to blame somebody, so I created the most viable scapegoat. But without any clear evidence, that violent notion faded along with the wounds in my heart. Did that girl know beforehand about my wife's death and was threatening me? Or did she prophesize that death and was offering me a road to salvation? If I had to choose between the two, I would tend towards the latter. Oishi smiled slightly in disbelief as he poured more beer from his bottle. Then, if I may, if what you say is true, then Rika Furude was a prophet who knew the future. If so, why didn't she predict that disaster? If she knew that the gas eruption was going to happen, why did she remain silent? Even after hours beforehand would have been enough. If the village knew, then most of the people would have escaped without dying. It was near the end of June 1983. Volcanic gases from the Onikafuchi swamp erupted and hit the village in the middle of the night. It was an unprecedented disaster where the whole populace was wiped out. It caused a wave of panic about the volcanic gas across the country, causing people to overreact over any reports of odd smells. I hadn't heard of the blockade on Hinamizawa area being lifted, so it should be cordoned off. That's... It was my turn to be lost for a response. Well, if Rika Furude, the reincarnation of Hinamizawa of Oyashiro-sama, was killed, then the village might have incurred the god's wrath, making him call forth the miasma from the swamp to kill everyone. That explanation is what the survivors are whispering about. Sorry, Oishi-san. Did you just say she was killed? Huh? Ah, yeah. Well, I don't think it would be a problem if I told you. When I saw the news about the gas disaster, I remembered that girl. I then found her name in the list of victims. That's why at the time I thought her own death she had predicted that was due to the gas. It was after that I learned from the tabloids of the series of mysterious death in Hinamizawa. During the 5 years leading up to the disaster, became known as the Curse of Oyashiro-sama. And that string of mysterious deaths lined up exactly with what that girl had predicted. So I had always thought to ask Oishi about it, as he had been involved in the investigation. That's right. That was the reason for our reunion. But right now, Oishi had said, Rika Furude didn't die in the disaster, but was killed? Can I ask you about the last year of the curse? I may be retired, but I still have to keep things confidential, you know. Excuse me, madam. Do you have anything cold that's brewed locally? High grade? If there is, I'll leave the selection to you. Oh my, I didn't mean it that way. Oishi laughed loudly, not wholly unsatisfied, and then stopped the hostess to tell her that the cheap booze was fine. I know as much as was written in those magazines, but I don't know anything about the curse that happened the year of the disaster, because the entire area around Hinamizawa was sealed off, you see. There wasn't much of an investigation that could be done on the last year of the curse. Even after several years, the quarantine is lifted. The villagers are mostly dead, and what few survivors there were mostly went to stay with relatives. Their whereabouts mostly unknown. It's a complete dead end. Oishi seemed to postulate to himself as he stared at the ceiling, as if trying to work out a memory from the rusty cogs in his head. And then he said in a completely sober voice, the magazines made it seem like the curse of the 5th year was that disaster. But the actual curse really happened on the day of the Watanagashi festival. A photographer by the name of Jiro Tomitake, he was the victim. Oishi gestured about how the victim tore out his own throat with his fingernails as he talked. And the burnt corpse of the woman Tomitake was in a relationship with was found in the mountains in Gifu. The Gifu prefectural police weren't very cooperative, so I don't know much about it though. There were 2 victims in one night. Actually, see? It wasn't just those 2. You see, the next day, Kumagai-kun, one of my subordinates, disappeared along with his car. Along with his car in the middle of his investigation. Kumagai was a younger detective that was going to be partnered with Oishi after we first met. He was going around the village to question people about the incident with Tomitake. He might have gotten caught up in something. If he was with me, he might have been safe. Even now, it still stings. That day, for some reason, I did a real number on my stomach. I had to pass on going around outside. He got too close to the truth and was made to disappear? That's what I think. Kuma-chan was young and had a promising future ahead of him, but he still didn't have enough experience on the scene. He wasn't used to dealing with any complication. Oishi lamented the fact that he wasn't with his subordinate that day. And then, the next day, you know him as well, Akasaka-san. You know Dr. Ire? You remember him? Ah, that young doctor from the hospital? I vaguely remember. For whatever reason, he committed suicide with sleeping pills. No suicide note or anything. The autopsy confirmed that it was the sleeping pills. Nothing was in doubt except for the motive. If it isn't that hard to make it look like somebody died from taking sleeping pills, is it any possibility it was a murder? He was single, no prior marriages. It didn't seem like he was going out with anybody in particular. He was the coach of the local junior baseball team and was on good terms with the villagers. He was liked by everybody. I couldn't find anybody who would want to do him harm. Well, any chances to investigate were ruined by the disaster though. There's no way to find out anything about him now. Then what about Rika Furude's death? It was the day of around noon. Some of the old folk who were visiting the shrine discovered the corpse of Rika Furude. Murder? Before we continue, you should probably stop eating that squid salmon. That bad? Oishi nodded firmly. The corpse was found on the shrine grounds next to the donation box. Although she was probably killed somewhere else. That's because while she was completely naked, there weren't any dirt on the sole of her feet. Any sign that it was some sort of sexual assault? According to the autopsy, there wasn't any indication of that. What we know is that she was rendered unconscious by some sort of drug, carried to that place, and had her abdomen sliced wide open. Her organs were deliberately removed and scattered about. Unconscious? Then she wasn't cut open after her death? That's horrible. That girl's prediction was right on the mark. I'm pretty sure she was more detailed about the other deaths that led up to her own. For example, she said that the housewife that was beaten to death on the 4th year had her head split open. Then, in that case, if she knew that her own death would be so terrible, there must have been some moments where she wanted to doubt the validity of her own predictions. But as people died exactly as prophesied, as the years passed, that prophecy would only come closer to fruition, and then, facing the final year, unable to struggle against her own destiny, her all-too-young life was snuffed out, and in such a cruel way. Knowing that her days were numbered, and unable to fight the tide of events heralding her end, my heart ached at her helplessness. About the way she died, it seemed like it wasn't just somebody's sick taste. What I'm saying is, I've told you before about how Hinamizawa used to be home to demons, didn't I? Yeah, I think I remember. The festival in Hinamizawa village, Watanagashi, the cotton drift, seemed to stem from the drifting of entrails. It seemed that it came from the man-eating demons ripping apart their victims and throwing their organs into the river. In other words, in Hinamizawa, pulling out entrails had some sort of religious meaning? Well, this is according to old tales in Hinamizawa, you see? To act as an arbitrator to the humans and the man-eating demons, could live together peacefully, a god known as Oyashiro-sama descended from the heavens. If I recall, Rika Furude was said to be the living incarnation of that Oyashiro-sama, wasn't she? Yeah, so cutting open Rika Furude's, who was a living god, would be to the village nothing less than absolute sacrilege. Absolute sacrilege? In other words, you mean sacrilege towards Oyashiro-sama? The rest you should know, Akasaka-san. The wrath of Oyashiro-sama would occur that same night. The great Hinamizawa disaster. The official explanation was that some swamp upstream erupted with toxic volcanic gas, which enveloped the village. The swamp where it erupted was called Onigafuchi Swamp. It was the origin of Hinamizawa's old name, Onigafuchi Village. According to village lore, the depths of the swamp apparently led to the Inferno, where the man-eating demons came from. That almost seems too perfect. Oh, no. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There was another bit of folklore in the village. If Oyashiro-sama became angry, the cauldron of the Inferno would open up and a miasma would open up and miasma would flow out, or so they say. To the villagers, the Inferno was at the bottom of the swamp, so basically the miasma poured out, smothering the village? Yeah, basically due to the sacrilegious way that Rika Furude, the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, was killed, the village incurred the wrath of Oyashiro-sama in the form of that disaster. That seems to be their explanation. So you're saying is that the disaster wasn't a natural one? Well, everything does seem to fit together a little too well. If Oyashiro-sama's curse doesn't really exist, and everything was just a matter of coincidence, I would doubt it. A worried smile formed on Oishi's face as he listened to my absurd take on things. He wore an expression as though, even if it were absurd, there was a time he had thought the same thing as well. In regards to the religious beliefs of the villagers, suppose there was a more fanatical following among them, and that group created a situation that would incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath and enacted the disaster to make it seem like the truth. Of course, I won't laugh. I've wandered down that line of reasoning more than once myself. However, even though Hinamizawa is a small village, it still has a population of over 1,000 people. To murder that many people in a single night doesn't seem realistic, no matter how you think about it. The gas eruption was believed to happen around 2 a.m., several hours before dawn. In that short amount of time, going around and killing all the villagers in a way that made it look like poison gas didn't seem feasible at all. The swamp the gas erupted from still had some religious significance in it. The gas erupted from still had some... Oh, if that's the case, then maybe there was something set up in the swamp, something that could be activated whenever a divine verdict was rendered. According to the JSDF press release, the swamp was declared the source of the eruption. This was after everything was thoroughly looked over by their investigative team. If something like that was set up, I think they would have found it. It wouldn't necessarily have to be the swamp itself. Come on. Haven't you ever heard about it? The old story about how when a faraway spring dried up, the village spring dried up as well. What do you mean by that? Many waterways are connected to the underground aquifers? Swamp and springs are the only part that manage to pop above the surface. Nah. So what you're saying is that Onigafuchi Swamp is connected to another swamp or spring. And there's something the villagers rigged up there long ago, something that changes the pressure of Onigafuchi Swamp, causing it to erupt with poison gas. Is that what you're getting at? Oishi laughed heartedly, commending him the fact that the youngins have a flexible way of thinking. That was the former detective in him. Even though it was a hypothesis that he didn't come up with them, he still had the presence of mind to not dismiss it right away. That's an interesting theory. If that proves to be true, then it would be unprecedentedly the largest mass murder in the history of Japan. Once the quarantine on Hinamizawa village is lifted, I think it should definitely be investigated. Oishi-san, do you have any connections with unknown prefectural police? Somewhat. I'm an honorary advisor for their judo classes, so even now I pop it by during summer camps and such. I don't know when the quarantine on Hinamizawa will be lifted, but please, let me help investigate. Got it. Oishi-san, how do you feel about the string of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa they call the Curse of Oyashiro-sama? At the time, the villagers were putting a lot of pressure on the station. The official stance on things was that the cases were unrelated. That each case was separate, each with its own resolution. That couldn't be. Even though it was blatantly obvious that the cases were connected based on the village's religious beliefs. Akasaka-san, we can only say that now because of the rather grandiose way things ended after 5 years. At the time, those coincidental incidents just happened to coincidentally occur on the day of Watanagashi. It would be nice if nothing happened this year kind of feel to it. Coincidence? The girl predicted everything from the beginning. Girl? Rika Furude. That child warned me about all the incidents that would happen afterwards. Akasaka-san? Is that true? Yes, the girl had said as much. That the next year the dam foreman would be killed and his corpse dismembered. Not only that, she warned me of all the events that would transpire in the following years. Akasaka-san, when did she tell you all that? What year was it? When I met the girl, I was investigating the kidnapping incident, so June of 1978, the year before the dismemberment murder. Wrinkles formed between Oishi's eyebrows as he closed his eyes and began to digest what I just told him. Akasaka-san, if you're wrong about Rika Furude knowing the future through some divine medium, this is getting ridiculous. Yep. If you're just trying to shock me, I'm going to be really angry, you know. I'm speaking the truth. Then the script behind the chain of mysterious death was written a year before it even started. And it, just as predicted, Rika Furude was killed. At first, I thought she meant that she would be killed in the disaster. However, now that I know her death wasn't due to that, but rather an atrocious one at the hands of a murderer, she said she would be killed. At that point in time, she knew more or less how her own death would occur. Then why didn't Rika Furude not try and run away? Even if her death was already spelled out for her, knowing that, she still had a grace period of several years, didn't she? She had plenty of time to try and run away or consult the police. Why did she just accept her death with no resistance? I don't know, even though Rika Furude was doted upon the older folks in the village, you see? After she lost her parents, she had no really living relatives, and lived a fairly solitary life, other than hanging around with some close friends. Where was I? It might have been she didn't have any power to fight or anybody to rely on. She must have tried signaling somebody for help in regards to her own death, though. You know very well that the village and the police weren't very well amicable with one another, Akasaka-san. At the very least, I never heard anything about Rika Furude seeking protection from anybody. Or it could be that she simply resigned herself to being a religious sacrifice. It could have been something like that. There's no way that was the case. I spoke decisively. At that time, she said it. She definitely said that she wanted to live happily, that she wanted to spend her time surrounded by her dear friends. She hadn't given up on life, she had hoped to keep on living. At that moment I became dumbstruck. What's the matter, Akasaka-san? No, it's nothing. I fell into silence. Oishi folded his arm and began murmuring in contemplation again. Eventually, he stood up towards the hallway to find a hostess, yelling that he wanted a pen and paper. When Oishi's noisy, even though he was just thinking, left, the room immediately fell into a chill silence. I stood up when it was then I realized I was drunk enough to be unsteady on my feet. When I slid open the door, a beautiful yet somehow ephemeral moon drifted across the night sky. It was just now that I realized she hadn't accepted her own death. She wanted to keep living happily and joyously. She had said that quite clearly to me, but wow, when you forget to change the volume throughout, but I was a fool. I hadn't asked explicitly, so I hadn't realized it. She made it clear as day that she didn't want to die. Wasn't that her cry for help? She didn't say as much that she wanted help. But even given that, it wasn't as though she wasn't looking for salvation. Without any family and unable to trust the police, she instead told somebody without any relation to the village, somebody from a faraway place, me, help me. She had gone around and cut the phone cords. If I had made that phone call and learned of Yukie's death, I probably would have fallen into despair. If I was in that state, even she was looking for help, Her cries would have fallen on deaf ears. That's why, knowing everything, she had cut the phone cords. She wanted even a little time to seek help from me. Oishi, just before now, had lamented that one of the younger officers got mixed up in a case, having been erased because he wasn't there. I was feeling the same way. If only I was there in June of 1983, I could have protected her. In 1983, it would have been 5 years since the kidnapping took place. While raising the only daughter Yukie had left me, putting all my youth and passion into my work, honing my wits and courage, wrestling with difficult cases. Nothing like my failings during the kidnapping incidents would have occurred. I wouldn't have been slow to react in a one-on-one fight, and I'd, by that point, had jumped into foreign mafia-run gambling bars where I'd deal with automatic weapons, let alone handguns. I had grown so much that in 1983 I couldn't have been even compared to how I was in 1988. That's why, if I was by her side, I should have been able to save her life. No matter what conspiracy or foul plots drew near, I definitely would have protected her. She, even though sounding resigned, should have still been able to ask me for help. I just didn't realize it. I couldn't realize it. Just as I wouldn't have realized it if I was told of Yukie's accident, I wasn't able to realize it. I wanted to cry. If I had taken her words to heart, I would have prevented Yukie's accident, and I would have been able to protect the girl to whom I owed a death from a predetermined death. She must have been expecting that from me. I learned about the disaster while watching television in my house. Until I learned about that, I had forgotten about Hinamizawa. In order to recover from the shock of Yukie's death, I tried to remove everything from the place from my memory. What an ungrateful fool I was. Even though I was in exchange for saving her, the girl had told me of a way to save Yukie. I was unable to accept her gratitude, and now here we were. She hadn't died in her sleep due to an unnatural disaster. She was split open while still alive, killed while suffering the disgrace of having her organs torn out. She must have known beforehand that on that day on that year, she would be killed in such a terrifying way. But even knowing what end awaited her, she was all too weak. A lone girl without anybody to rely on, unable to seek help, had to swallow her own predetermined death and left this mortal coil. She said she wanted to live. She said she just wanted to live happily. That's all she wanted. She didn't ask for anything extravagant. For any person that was ever born, it was the very basis of desires. She never said a peep about wanting money, or that she wished she was in somebody else's situation. She had said it. How, if all the deaths were preordained, then hers was probably also all according to plan. She might have been a lone, frail girl, but I don't think she would have accepted it all without at least putting up a fight. There must have been, in some small way, some small form of resistance that she mustered. And with anything she could muster, seeking my help was part of that. I howled. I stomped the floor. Why did I become a police officer in the first place? How could I call myself an officer if I couldn't save a single girl from the misfortune that was awaiting her? Was it because there was too much going on at that time? I couldn't process the fact that she was asking for help. I'm sorry? I'm sorry. I'm trying to finish this. Don't worry. You won't see this for a while. And how are you doing tonight, by the way? Yeah, that's right. I was still green. And I'm in the final chapter anyway, so you don't have to worry anymore. Yeah, I know what you mean, Usagi. If I was in that situation now, I would have definitely been able to help her. But it was already all over. Even if I wanted to sell the regrets she left behind, as a dangerous area was still quarantined. Most of the people involved were already dead, with the few that did remain spread around the country, unable to be traced. The stage of that tragedy was still off limits as well. The police investigation was put on hold. The case slowly being buried in the sands of time. Just like how I wouldn't have known unless Oishi had asked me about it. Akasaka-san, are you okay? At some point, Oishi had returned with a notebook in hand. Until I saw the expression on Oishi's face, I didn't realize I was in tears. I never realized she wanted help. Akasaka-san? Calm down, but it's all too late now. She was killed! In such an atrocious manner. She was counting on me, but I couldn't save her. I might also be at fault for not building up an amicable relationship with the village. If Rika Furude had told me about it, I might have been able to extend a little helping hand. I wasn't able to build up enough trust for that. That's something I regret. When Oishi said the word trust, it weighed on me even more. Yes, she had given me her trust. She trusted me, meaning that she thought that I would have been able to ward off the fate of her foreseen death. She believed in that. I cried, I fell to my hands and knees as I began to bawl. Eventually, Oishi spoke quietly. Akasaka-san? Does this upset you? It does? Then there's only one way worth mentioning for Rika Furude to have her revenge. Is there really? Is there a way to do that? Oishi showed me the pen and notebook. In order to properly mourn the death of Rika Furude, we have to at least find out the truth. The truth. Yes, and not just Rika Furude, lots of people died. Their lament must be immeasurable. But their deaths were left unsettled because of the disaster, and now we can't even investigate them, as their memory fades into oblivion. Many people died. This old man was killed. Kuma-chan was erased. Everybody was a victim. But the police can't even investigate it. Who's going to take care of their parting regrets? Only we can, Akasaka-san. We find the truth. Yeah, we'll find it. I have been around every one of the string of mysterious deaths and know all of the inner workings of the village. You were told an important truth the year before they happened, Rika Furaday. By Rika Furaday, we can do it. But they're already dead. Oh, that's right. Rika Furaday died. You were too inexperienced, so you couldn't save her. Oishi grabbed me, who was a wreck, and lifted me firmly by the lapels. That's why, to atone for that, we revealed the truth. If what you say is true, then all the incidents were part of some greater design. If that's the case, then how we investigate needs to change completely. I intend to spend tonight summarizing all the information you and I have, and then get in contact with one of my former subordinates first thing in the morning. We're not going to let the case go cold. We're definitely going to crack it wide open. Crack it open? Crack it open! We will. Several years have passed, but it's not beyond the statute of limitations. Even if the case has been postponed, it's not close, it's still going. We're going to keep it going. Oishi and I vowed to bring the truth of the case to the light and stood up. Everything ended in 1985. I at least wanted to apologize, had searched for her grave. After the state autopsy, her remains were entrusted to one of the shrine's followers. In the future, when the quarantine on Hinamizawa area was lifted, it would return to her family grave. However, unsure who exactly took the remains of Rika Furaday, until today I couldn't even apologize to her. In the future, when the quarantine on Hinamizawa is lifted, all I could do was wait until whoever that person is returned to the grave. What I could do right now was not apologize to her. Instead, until I was able to meet her again, I would reveal the truth and dispel her regrets. Even now, sporadic eruptions of gas in Hinamizawa area meant that the prospects of the quarantine being lifted wasn't happening anytime soon. Most likely, it seemed that she had no intention of meeting me again until I found the truth. That's why the quarantine wouldn't be lifted, or so I thought. Until the day I grasped the truth, it was the following year. Oishi and I co-authored the book on the string of mysterious death leading up to the great Hinamizawa disaster. I decided on the title, Higurashi, When They Cry. That was because for a few days I was in Hinamizawa. The sound that I remember the most was the cry of the Higurashis. I could only wish that based on this book, those people involved with that incident could refresh their memories and to bring life to a new truth. And more importantly, nothing like this ever happens again. I wrote this in the afterword. Why did this tragedy happen? We can't reach the truth by ourselves. If you're reading this, please discover the truth. That is our only wish. Kurado Oishi Mamoru Akasaka. This year, the quarantine on Hinamizawa still hasn't lifted. And that's it. Time to finish the after party. All cast review session. Thank you very much for playing Higurashi When They Cry, Himatsubushi. My oh my, no matter what anybody else says, I was the star of the scenario this time. On top of that, they added some nice jazzy theme music. I agree. If you can't laugh here, where can you laugh? Nah. Anyways, hasn't there been too much of you lately, Oishi? Huh? What do you mean by that? She meant that literally. It's rather impudent of you to try and hog the spotlight here. Even though you already had all of that screen time. Besides, Rika-chan, who was the main heroine, oh my god, Rena. Everybody else didn't really have any appearances, did they? I heard that this time the scenario was a bit of a side story, but I didn't think that they would leave out the main cast this much. You didn't have it so bad, Mion-san. At least you have a few appearances, did you not? Both Rena-san and I didn't even have a cameo. Yeah, I know. Rena still showed up on the covers a lot, so she's still okay. Sounds about right. Exactly what are you trying to say then? That I was the only outcast with no appearance, is that it? Nipa! They only treated me horribly! How sad, how sad. Until you finally drop down to a supporting role. That's just too much. That's not true. There's lots of people who like Satoko-chan. They won't treat you like that horribly, okay? I don't like being treated like this! I think you'll probably have a lot of appearances next time. So cheer up, okay? But I'd heard that this scenario was supposed to be somewhat of a bonus story, but is it really? I think that things kind of got complicated. The story was difficult for me to understand. Yeah. What I found the hardest to believe was that the year before the string of mysterious deaths, Rika-chan already knew about them. Which means all the incidents were part of someone's scenario. That's pretty important piece of information. It's probably because I'm a shrine maiden, so I knew the future from Oyashiro-sama's divine revelations. For somebody like me who believes in the theory that it was a work of human culprits, I'd like to deny that. I believe in the curse so that Rika-chan, who's the living incarnation of the deity that protects Hinamizawa, Oyashiro-sama, could have that divine power as a possibility, I think. Nope. For someone who thinks it was a work of man, that kind of unfounded fantasy would not stand. All the incidents here caused by people. There's no curse or magic or aimbots or cheat codes. It would be wonderful if I could use magic though. If it's Rika-chan, I could go along with that. How? Well, for the people who believed it was a work of humans, the ending was a big revelation. From the first incident until Rika-chan was killed in the Great Disaster, everything was scripted. Knowing that it was one big incident vastly increased the amount of material you can hypothesize with. I think that the prophecy is proof in itself that Rika-chan has some divine power. In other words, it's proof that there's some mysterious power at work in Hinamizawa. I think it's proof that the incidents weren't the work of humans alone. The inside of my head is so muddled, I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's right. More importantly, that expression that Rika-chan was wearing this time. That was super scary, wasn't it? Meep! Yeah, I was surprised too. I never thought that cute little Rika-chan would laugh like that. Hey, just for a little bit, could you show us that face one more time? I don't want to. I don't want her to do that outside the story. Hello? What? What is this? A blackout? Nobody move! Any weird movements and you'll come face to face with a combo trap that... Oh, Jesus. That takes you from the pendulum to a landmine to an electric chair with a buzzsaw. Satoko! What's the meaning of this? We'll now be starting the after party for everybody who didn't have an appearance this time. Oh! Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Hello again, everybody. I didn't think that I'd have an appearance here, of all places. I'm delighted, though. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Hello again, everybody. I didn't think that I have an appearance too, of all places. I'm delighted too, though, Satoko-chan. Thank you. Oh, hello, everybody. Yeah. Oh my! Didn't I warn you not to move? Ryugu-san, are you okay? Hojo-san, you didn't have to go this far. Oh, ho, ho. The grudge of somebody not making an appearance is a terrible thing. Satoko had a lot of appearance in the main scenario. The grudge of somebody not making an appearance. When was she able to set this many traps? Maybe that when this place was selected as the venue for the after party, at that point my traps were already set. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Oh, I know. There's somebody behind you pulling the strings. There is, isn't there? Shion! Come out! Hello, hello, my sister. How are you doing? Oh, it's Shion-chan. Hello. Yeah. I feel sorry for her falling for the same trap twice. I thought that it was you, Shion, even though you're penciled in to be the main character in the next scenario. This is an outrage. Now you've gone and done it. Even if it's only the bonus scene before the answer arc, I can't let my sister have all the appearances. I'm not that generous, you know? Well, in any case, I should just let Satoko start a little something something. Grrr! Shion, what is it that you want? let's just say I'm securing myself a little safety buffer. The other day, for some reason, you were steadily getting more votes in the popularity poll. But like back in 2004? Yep! In the first half of the Watanagashi chapter, there were a lot of people getting infatuated with me-chan. When your malicious side made its appearance, all the players finally started noticing my charm. Satoko also earned a good reputation during the Tatsuri Goroshi arc. Rena and Rika-chan have a strong baseline of support. Your popularity has long since faded away. I see what they're doing there. That's why. I thought I'd take the time to crush you and Satoko, who've been getting too many votes for my comfort. So I came up with this elaborate plan. Shion-san, what did you say just now? You're going to crush me as well? You're a little slow to notice, aren't you, Shorty? Here you go. What? Goodbye, all you regulars. Hello to all you regular folks. All the main characters are... Sorry, I just heard someone coming in. Shion-chan, you don't have to go that far, probably. Now, Jiro-san. It's interesting to let it be. So, just let it be. The number of appearances for both of us is going up, you know. Jiro-san? Do you not like being by my side? That's not true. Chie-sensei, did Shi-chan pay you off too? I'm sorry, Ryugu-san. Shion-san said she would make me a new segment called Teach Me Chie-sensei, starting from the next scenario, so I just... Well then, who should I dispose of next in the most embarrassing manner? Maybe Satoko, since she helped me set this all up. I won't allow that. Yeah! Coach! It seems... He seems somehow reliable for once. I, Kyosuke Ide, shall not allow any aggressions against Satoko-chan. I may also just be a supporting character, but don't think you can persuade me so easily. Oh. Then you're saying you want to withdraw from being lead in live performance, Satoko's maid training dress-up chapter that we planned on filming after this. Shion-sama, I, Kyosuke Ire, shall follow you to the depths of the inferno. That was fast. Well then, with this I'm holding all the cards. Even in this after party scene 2, I'll have everything proceed as I see fit. Huh? We're missing somebody? Shion-sama, Rena-san isn't here. She escaped at some point. There she is, Ryugu-san. Didn't I just tell you you shouldn't move? Rena-chan, I won't do anything to hurt you, but it's easier if you don't resist. Sorry, but this is all really bizarre. What are you trying to do? The light switches? See, you're planning to do something when the room's pitch black, aren't you? Resistance is futile. Rena-san, you should stop your pointless resistance and just come along peacefully. If you make me angry enough, then not only will you suffer, but so will my dear sister as well. You can't do anything just by turning off the lights. Rena, I'm sorry, but do what they say. It's alright, don't worry. By turning off the lights, we can reverse the situation. Reverse the situation? Exactly what are you scheming? Rena-san, you're pretty good at making me laugh. Then why don't you go ahead and try? Show me how you're going to turn this around. You're spoiled, Shi-chan. Even if you didn't have any appearance in the main scenario, you had so much screen time. And hi, Odin, how are you doing tonight? You're spoiled. Well, when exactly are you saying I was spoiled? You don't understand, Shi-chan. Even if it's just the after party, you still have an appearance. You also appeared in a lot of previous scenarios. There's somebody who resents you from the depths of the inferno who can't forgive you. Listen, can't you hear it, Shi-chan? Woo-hoo! It's all I can say on this. That's right, I understand now. So, Odin, I just got a very rude comment that just complained about the games I'm playing like this on Mixer. That's right, I understand now. I get it. K-chan! That's right, he has never made any appearance during the after parties. There's no way K-chan would allow somebody to monopolize the after parties all to himself without him. I see, so how's K-chan going to appear here when he doesn't even have any character art? It couldn't possibly be that they insert new character art just for this. That's just your self-centered way of thinking, Shi-chan. Gah, no! If the lights are turned off, Chie-sensei, hold Rena-chan back. Huh? It's too late! Save me! Save me, Keiji-kun! That voice is K-chan? Rena, you have my thanks. When even the moon abandons the land? I think they left. Their name was Dr. Thrift. I'll talk to you about this after the stream. Really, never mind. I'll talk about it. When even the moon abandons the land and shrouds in its true darkness, the demon lord of the darkest black, Keiji Maibara, shall appear. I see, if it's like this, he can even appear even if he doesn't have any character art. There's no character art or background art, so it's really easy on the production staff. Shion! You act like you're the main character in a tragedy. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. It's more of like a comedy. It seems like you've gotten carried away. Every after party. Without any character art, without any sort of appreciation, witness my anger, my grudge, and all of my sorrow. I shall instill it upon you. It almost seems like Keiji-kun is doing some sort of bad guy transformation sequence. Exactly. This isn't some sort of transformation. I'll have you know, I've always been the Demon Lord. And as of right now, this world which is enveloped within true darkness shall dance upon the palm of my hand. Within this world of darkness, there's none who can oppose me. Keiji-kun is kind of scary. Oh. Scary? The age of the frightening Higurashis has come to an end. From here on out begins the dawn of a perverted cutie. Oh no, don't foreshadow it like 2004, I think. Yeah, don't foreshadow this 7 to 8 years later. No! What did you just say? Maibara-sama? Bring me with you. You know it, coach. Then as a first step, I'll show. Oh my god, no more my power. Yeah! Yeah! What is this? Takano-san is in a miniskirt herself. Oh, stop. And it's not some pink one like you find in a... Oh my god. It's proper pure and innocent white. He knows what he's doing. Even though she's a nurse, she doesn't appear in the outfit once during the main scenario. You've got to be kidding me. Well then, on to the next target. Rena, this hasn't changed the situation at all. It just turned into a different type of Christ. Hello? I can't do anything in this darkness. Now then, who should I make? Who should I make where? What next? Maybe a nice school uniform, gym clothes, school swimsuit triple combo. Maibara-sama, you're the best. How about a bunny girl or a camping girl No, how about...
Help me! Oh my god!
This is exactly how I'm feeling right now. But of course, leave the socks on. Whoa! That's a good idea. You know your stuff. Coach, I feel like we're seeing eye to eye here. Wait, Maibara-san. No, call me all ill from now on. Call me Dr. Ill. Kay, you can't forget about us. Tommy and Kurado are already on your side, Kay. There's all this loot stuff going on. Tommy, Kurado, we're all finally here. The Elite Four have arrived. What is this, Pokemon? Finally. With Kea at their head, the evil Elite Four made their grand entrance. With the black, complete darkness, the demon lord of the darkest black, Keiji Maibara, was finally able to reach the surface world. His magical power was without equal. Oh. You might want to refresh then. Nobody could stand against him. All must bow. Ah, will the heroines be unable to escape this darkness and be forced to submit to the will of the demon lord, forced to wear embarrassing outfits after embarrassing outfits, being used as a life-size dress-up dolls for all eternity? That's great. More. By the way, the school swimsuits are a classic type, right? I won't forgive you if they're the competitive swimming style. Shield, thanks to you, ended up like this, so do something about it. It's alright, sis. Kei-chan isn't the only one who can unleash their true power amid the darkness, huh? Do we have such a convenient ally? You're rather impertinent, Shion Sonosaki. Also, if you were expecting help from the principal, that's too bad. This is the ultimate desire of young men. Oh my god, how long is this gonna drag on? It's written on this nice authorization slip here. Of course, you won't be able to rely on the newcomer Akasaka-san either. He's been on a private couples hot spring vacation with his wife's family set up for them since yesterday. In other words, all the bases are covered. You're so naive, Kei-chan. Even the characters who have art are able to reveal their true form in the darkness. Chie-sensei! That's how it is, Maibara-kun. It's dark, so I can't really tell, but it seems like Chie-sensei's outfit is different. What are those? All those swords in her hand? They couldn't be. The black... Any more than that is a secret. Nippa! Maibara-kun, that was just a little too much mischief on your part. The church can't overlook any more than this. What? Wait a minute! This here. There's no way, right? That's cheating. It's against the rules. Hey, she can't do this, right? Well, wait. You can't use that big one, huh? Her arc drive has startup invincibility. The 7. Yeah! Wait, I thought I was still going. Am I still live? Is it finally over? Oh, thank God. Oh my God, it's finally over. Hello again. Thank you very much for playing Higurashi When They Cry, Himatsubushi. I think you already know this, but Higurashi When They Cry is a type of visual novel without any choices. Therefore, compared to adventure-type visual novels with branching routes to take, It's much closer to the experience of a book or a movie. Because of that, there's an opinion out there that should not be called a game per se. If you're just watching it like a book or movie, Higurashi, when they cry, isn't a game, really isn't a game, true. That's why, as you know, there are a lot of mysteries referenced during the course of the experience. When you challenge those, this will become a proper game. All the players have the privilege of scrutinizing this mystery-packed story from all sorts of angles. For example, forming the theory about the mysteries during the course of the story, sharing them with your friends, and receiving their theories in return could be fun. In any case, the next chapter starts the answer arcs. We've tentatively called it Meakashi. But answers... Oh, I want to take Rena home like... Oh, that sounded so wrong. That's how I feel with her cuteness. Based on what is revealed, all the possibilities that you were allowed to imagine until now will suddenly become refined down to a few. Based on that logic, we think that right here before the answer arc is probably where people can enjoy this work we call Higurashi when they cry the most. If by chance while you are reading this, you have already read the Meakashi chapter at hand. Actually, I'm just waiting. I'm gonna read that in 2020. If people are okay with this, please enjoy hypothesizing, theorizing, and fantasizing to the fullest before you start. That's where the real charm of the series takes place. Sorry for saying something that's so impudent. There's nothing we'd like than for you to enjoy Higurashi when they cry. Well then, have a long and pleasant night. Thank you. We're all waiting for you in Hinamizawa. If you come and play with Rena, I'd love to go treasure hunting together. Oh yeah, I would. How? Oh, it's finally done. Alright, that concludes Higurashi When They Cry the Questions arc, and along with Himatsubushi. So until then, I'll play this answer arc until like 2020, assuming Matsuribayashi comes out in that year, and I hope to Christ people are all okay with this, unlike some people. Anyway, yeah, just to please everyone, I'm gonna reset the schedule back to normal and play some either Oblivion. Yeah, I'll play some Oblivion for the last week and then go back to Pokemon next week. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.